কি বেড়ে আইফোন 12 কিন্তু এতেই থাকবে এখন।
ফোল্ডিংটা কি জিনিস?
ও স্যামসাং Z Fold 2
কি এটা?
ফোল্ডিং ফোন।
মাঝখানে বইয়ের মতন ভালো থাকে না এটা?
Fine, so we okay. So we will be starting with the chapter of reproduction. Here you see I will explain this thing, that what reproduction is. First of all, I would like to say that reproduction is a life process, one of the life processes. Okay, so definitely reproduction is a life process and one of the life processes. There are 4 basics which are living, at least perform these 4 basic life processes. Life processes may be more than this. There is, see, the 4 basic life processes are the nutrition. The 4 basic life processes are the nutrition, the respiration, the excretion, and the reproduction. These are the 4 basic life processes. Are you getting my point? The nutrition, the respiration, the excretion, and the reproduction. 4 basics. Why I am calling it 4 basic life processes? Because this life process is done by everyone. Every organism in this universe does this life process. Are you getting my point? See, the fact is this, that to understand this chapter, class 9 chapter cell should be very clear to you. Is it clear to you? Also, the chapter of tissues should also be clear to you. Is it clear to you? Fine. If it is clear to you, then only you will understand in a level. I will try to make you understand the chapter of reproduction. See, if I talk about a unicellular bacteria, this unicellular bacteria is a very simple organism. Very simple organism, just one cell. But one cell also, it performs nutrition. It performs respiration. It performs excretion. And it also performs reproduction. If you take into account, suppose a single organism is there, and this organism, a unicellular organism, may absorb food from its environment through the cell membrane. Then inside the cell, it will break that food to produce energy in the form of ATP. And then the waste products that are created would be thrown out of the cell by the process of diffusion again. And the energy that has been produced due to respiration will be used by it to divide. However, if you compare, a human being is there, another human being is there, a male and a female, and they give birth to a baby. This organism first grows, but in the process of its growing, it eats food every day. Nutrition occurs, does respiration every day, does excretion every day, and the energy that comes from respiration uses in running around, studying, finding jobs, all these things they do. Yes or no? So here you are kind of finding it tricky that okay, it is a simple unicellular organism, it is also living organism. Human beings, it is also living organism. the simplest and the most complex. इसके बीच में तो there is cockroach, there is lizards, there are lions, there are tigers, different types of organisms are there of various classes. The reptiles, different classes of organisms are there. Now, not only these, vertebrates, the non-vertebrates are also there. The annelids, the mollusks, the echinoderms. So all these are there. Then there are these. Hold on. We call them. Those organisms, those are tapeworms and all those kind of organisms. They are also there. I think they are called platyhelminthes. Yes, platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes are there. Then sponges are there. So different types of organisms are there. And not only the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom is also there. The bryophyta, the pteridophytes, the angiosperms, the gymnosperms, the thallophytes. And also there are organisms of the protista and the monera, who are bacteria and fungi, and of the fungi, and amoeba are the protistas and the moneras are the bacteria. If we try to understand class 9's diversity chapter also, we get an idea that yes, there is huge diversity of organisms, but in each and every organism, let us not go into those complex understanding of what are the different classes and families and those. But if you simply think what are the organisms or different types of organisms you see around yourselves are cockroaches, dogs, cats, snakes, lizards, house lizards, this type of organisms, fishes, frogs, snails, different types of organisms you see. And every organism, trust me, and you also know about bacteria, right or wrong? And you also know about fungi, all these organisms, but they all perform the function of nutrition, respiration, excretion, reproduction. All of them perform the function of this. Now, in each of the organisms which are, organisms have developed from monera. At first, at the beginning of the world, at the beginning of the story, or life, the first living organisms that were formed were moneras, means the bacteria, the simplest ones. They also do these 4 life processes. And as we developed, slowly we developed. From unicellular, we became multicellular. From multicellular, we became much more organized. Some of us became plants, some of us became animals. Some of us started doing photosynthesis. In plants also there are different types, different adaptations, development observed. Are you getting my point? You are understanding or not? Different things that you observe, different developments that you observe. And in them, what you find? In them, basically, you find that you see all of them does some life processes. Maybe there can be extra life processes. Like in human, control and coordination is also a life process. Locomotion is also a life process. Moving around, movement is also a life process. But does that mean we don't do these 4 basic life processes? We definitely do. See, life is based on these 4 life processes. To support these 4 life processes, to stay more adaptive to the environment, we had evolved in ourselves the extra life processes, extra features of the body. You have eyes, nose, legs, hairs, right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
You have developed these features. From bacteria, there came much more organisms. Like that is the reason why I told you that there are annelids, there are arthropods, there are mollusks, then there are echinoderms, there are fishes, there are amphibians and reptiles and birds, and then mammals. In mammals also there are different types of mammals, and there is development of the mammals. There are lower grade mammals also. So you see lots of development, right? And this development is due to they wanted to adapt to the environment. We always wanted to make our life better, adapt to the environment better. That's why this evolution came. Okay, evolution became, the reason of evolution is lots. Are you getting my point? But yeah, this happened. But every organism, if you see, they have developed special features to do reproduction. Every life processes. And also they have developed special features to do other also, which lower organisms don't have. Are you getting my point? For reproduction also, if you see into lower organisms, they just divide into two. They just divide into two. Yeah? And that is their reproduction. But for you, for human beings, the process of reproduction, you need reproductive organs for that. Otherwise, you will not be able to reproduce. Right or wrong? If I chop off his reproductive organ, he will not be able to reproduce. Because he is a human being. Yes or no? We need special reproductive organs to do it. This came due to development. Evolution. Evolutionary development. Are you getting my point? Are you understanding?
Yes.
So, yes, definitely reproduction occurs. And reproduction means giving birth to new one. And reproduction is a type of life process only. Are you getting my point? Reproduction is a type of life process. Is this understood?
Yes, sir.
So now if this you have understood that reproduction is a type of life process, and in a bacteria, the thing I was saying, that in a bacteria energy is produced, that energy produced from respiration is utilized by these two cells, is utilized by this cell to produce these two cells. And you will say that I also do nutrition, respiration, excretion, but the energy we get from respiration, I use it to run to school, to play cricket, this, that. Yes or no? We do all these things. Then you will say that, okay sir, we use energy for different purposes. No. I had asked a question here, see, what is the ultimate aim of life? The ultimate aim of any life, the huge diversity of life that I have talked right now, is reproduction. It has to be reproduction. Because if a particular organism, be it a unicellular organism, be it a multicellular organism, be it a highly advanced organism, if it only stays alive in its own lifetime, only one organism, it will excrete, it will take nutrition, it will respire, gain the energy, go to school, do this, that, but only one person. One day he will die and the population will not increase. So if the population, if it is just not multiplying, if it is not increasing its population, not creating its copy, the continuity of the life will not be there. What will not be there? Continuity will not be there. Continuity of life will not be there. The continuity of life will not be there. Yes or no?
Yes.
So, reproduction is what? Reproduction is such a life process which leads to continuity of life. So, for this 10-13 minutes, what I have said, I will just recapitulate in 1 minute. And that what I wanted to say is that my first point is every living organisms, I'm sorry for that tone, every living organism does these 4 life processes. But that doesn't mean that these 4 life processes are the only life processes. There are many types of life processes, but these life processes in much more higher organisms. I have given you an account of different types of organisms which you have learnt in class 9, and you can today go back and see this chapter once more, that just once in 1-2 minutes just turn through the pages and see that what are the types of organisms that are there in this universe, and most are undiscovered also. Anyway, so these organisms are there and they have their life processes, but these 4 life processes are the basic life processes carried out by everyone, be it any habitat, be it any form of life, unicellular, multicellular, vertebrate, invertebrate, coelomate, acylomate, whatever characteristic life there. We have evolved characteristic wise. So our process of doing every life process is also varied. We do respiration through our lungs, through our blood, then our respiration completes. It becomes much more efficient. But a bacteria just takes in oxygen through its cell membrane. For nutrition, we have our digestive system, but a bacteria just does it through one cell. Maybe a little bit higher organism, fungi, does it little bit in a much more complex but a much more efficient way, that it can procure more food and can stay living for more strongly or adapt more strongly in an environment. This is how evolutionarily we have different in our characteristics, and we do this lipolysis in a different way. So the way of reproduction is also different in different organisms. Are you getting my point? The reproduction is also evolved. But reproduction is a mode of, if reproduction wouldn't be there in an organism, be it whichever organism, then continuity of that species wouldn't be there. Reproduction is for continuity of life. But if a particular species do not do reproduction, the continuity of that species will also not be there. If today all the lions stop doing reproduction, you will not find lions anymore after maybe 50 years or 100 years. So reproduction leads to continuity of life or the continuity of the species. Now, one more interesting thing I will tell you, that reproduction, the process of reproduction in different types of organisms, be it plants or animals, can be divided into two parts, and the two parts are sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Now, what happens in case of sexual and asexual reproduction is that in sexual reproduction there is always involvement of two partners, a male and a female. Now, this is just not when I say think about humans. What is the most obvious thing that you do, and you keep yourselves away from the beauty of this chapter, is that you start giggling, laughing and feeling shy, or pinching your friends. The mistake why you do this is that because you don't take it as pure biology. If you take it as a pure biology, it is not the case of humans, dear, only. It is the case of lions, it is the case of cats, it is the case of dogs, it is the case of elephants, it is the case of snakes, it is the case of the alligators, it is the case of the crocodiles, it is the case of... Do you know?
Snakes also.
Obviously. Snakes do... It is the case of fishes, it is the case of frogs, lizards, they do sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is done by very lower organisms. Sexual reproduction is done by higher organisms. Remember this.
How do
Snakes. So fishes, they will lay eggs. Snakes.
Laying eggs, does that mean it is asexual
No, but
reproduction?
then fertilization will be sort of sexual. They will involve two parents, no?
Huh?
So that is sexual reproduction.
Huh?
So snakes, no?
Huma, snakes, what do you think? You are talking about, do you know earthworms?
Yeah.
You know what they are? Hermaphrodites. You know the meaning of this? Earthworm's body has male sex cell or male gamete. Sex cell or gamete is the cell which is responsible for doing the reproduction. Well, you didn't let me complete. I think you were... wait, I'll answer. And there is female sex cell. This is a female gamete. Both are in the same body. That's why called hermaphrodite. Now, what are you asking me? You are asking how snakes have sex. That is what you are asking me.
So like snakes to a snakes, so how can they be male and female? That I don't.
Snakes are snakes. Humans are humans. How are they male and female? What are you asking? How can we recognize it is a male snake or a female snake?
Yes, sir. So like.
I don't know. Am I a snake specialist or what? But I guess you are now confusing me. I guess there are male and female snakes. Snakes lay eggs, right? If snakes are reproducing, it is sexual reproduction.
Then how do snakes do sex?
How?
That is not important.
Go find out.
What's natural?
No, I thought snakes.
I know this much that they intertangle with each other when they have sex. That much I can say. Now I have to... Fine, I shouldn't say you anything. You can ask question, but I don't know this. I will surely today only I will study about how snakes have sex and what are their sexually reproducing organs and how the male gamete fuses. You already know these things. So male gamete and female gamete fuses and forms a zygote. The zygote either develops in a way so that the baby comes out directly, or the zygote when develops forms a shell around it, which are formed egg-laying organisms. But they have sex. Their male gamete What is sex? Sex is an act of mixing the male and female gamete. That's all.
Sex or snakes will not have male and female. So,
No, obviously, dear, snakes should do copulation. This you should say copulation or coitus. What should you say?
Population or coitus.
Right? And it is pure interesting biology. You see, that is the reason what I was trying to say is, well, you didn't let me complete. That is what I am saying. That let me begin from here. That sexual reproduction, a male and a female will be there. If not, then at least male sex cell and female sex cell will be there, so that they can join and form a zygote, which will develop into a new offspring. Are you getting my point? Am I being able to make myself clear?
Yes, sir.
That in hermaphrodites, the male sex cell and the female sex cell lies in the same body, like in earthworm. But in other organisms, the male has to transfer the sex cells to the female's body. The male has to transfer the sex cells to the female's body. The females in every species of organisms only are the ones which give birth to the new ones. The females. It is never the males. Males are also equally important because whenever you think of this, how to think, I will say you, so that first of all in first class I should say this only, because so that you never feel shy when I talk about human reproduction. The internet connection is unstable here. Okay, so here you see, suppose for example a cell is there. I don't know, the internet connection is showing unstable in my screen. Okay, suppose a cell is there. This cell, if you remember, suppose you are talking about a cell. Now this cell, if you remember, will have, if it is a prokaryotic cell, you understand what is prokaryotic cell? Cells of bacteria. Then the DNA will be lying here. You know what is the importance of DNA? What is it? The DNA now, as the DNA contains the genes, as we are seeing, these genes are segments of DNA which codes for proteins. These proteins either can act as enzymes to catalyze various chemical reactions in the cell, or can give characteristics to the organism. So whatever sequence or whatever the gene, see, one gene is located after another, another gene is located after another, another gene is located after another. Suppose this is gene 1, gene 2, gene 3, gene 4, gene 5. In this way, lots and lots of genes are present in a DNA. This is the structure of a DNA. It is just a long DNA intertwined with each other, among itself, in itself, supercoiled. Are you getting my point? So what happens is, this DNA is there and lot of genes are there. From these genes, the proteins that comes out in the cell only, the proteins that comes out, those proteins can either act as enzymes or can give the characteristics of the organisms. Now what happens is that if this is the importance of the DNA, now if a cell is there, whatever is the characteristic of the cell, it is how it is doing reproduction, respiration or excretion or nutrition. It is all, or how its behavior is in a particular environment. All the things are coded in the gene. Its entire life process. See, enzymes always catalyzes the chemical reactions. And life is what? Life is a set of chemical reactions. Respiration, nutrition, excretion, what are these? Chemical reactions only going on inside the cell? Sets of chemical reactions, thousands and thousands of chemical reactions, for which thousands and thousands of enzymes are required to catalyze those, to make those reactions possible. So if they are proteins, and if this work, catalyzing the chemical reactions to make them possible, and characteristics depend on the specific structure of the protein. And the specific structure of the protein depends on what is the sequence in the gene, because from the gene only the protein is coded. How, that we will learn later on. In this class only, I mean not today, but in class 10 only I will teach you how. But this happens. And when the proteins, they come out, are you getting my point? When the proteins, they come out, the proteins are there. Okay, and the proteins in the cell makes the cell what it is. Whether it is your liver cell, your lung cell, your brain cell, or maybe if it is a cell of a bacteria, or if it is a cell of a eukaryotic, or if it is a cell of a fungi, or if it is a cell of a lion's tongue, or if it is a cell of a snake's reproductive organ. The cell's behavior depends on what type of genes it carries. Are you getting my point? Now, one interesting thing you should understand, that the genes in the DNA, if I talk about the DNA, which is present where? If you talk about a eukaryotic cell, it is present inside the nucleus. But if you talk about a prokaryotic cell, it is just in the cytoplasm. And the structure of the DNA, if stretched, if made uncoiled, will be like this, still like this. But if you still uncoil this, there are two strands of the DNA. Are you getting my point? In these strands, the sequences are there. The sequences are formed of 4 molecules: A, T, G, C. Adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. These are the 4 molecules which randomly stays A, T, G, C, C, A, T, T, G, C, A. You can create any random such sequence, and these random sequences are there in the strands of the DNA, which the parts of which sequences forms the code for specific proteins. Not 1 or 2 proteins, but all the proteins required by the cell. Are you getting my point? This is what makes an organism a particular organism of that particular characteristic. Now I ask you a question. Have you ever seen a lion giving birth to a cat? Have you ever seen a cat giving birth to a human? Have you ever seen a human giving birth to a dog? So that means, if suppose we are humans and I take one cell of ours, in that cell nucleus is there, and I take the DNA out. Such a long DNA with so many protein sequence or gene sequences stays in such a small cell, yes, by the method of supercoiling. They coil and form chromatid thread. You know that, right? Then in my cell, all the genes are there: gene 1, gene 2, gene 3. In this way, lots and lots of genes are there. And remember, the set of the genes present in one cell of my body will be present in every cell of my body. Means I will have a particular characteristic cell whose genetic material will carry sequences which I have particularly for myself. But if I take out, if this is Shri Raharoy, if I take out her cell, and if I take out sequences, now from hers, yes or no?
Yes.
Because we look different from each other. But I will say that it is only 1% difference which makes us difference. As because we belong to the same species, 99% of our genes are same. Same sequences. Because why? We are same species. Yeah, little bit difference is there. That is known as variation between the same species. Maybe you look little different, I look little different. That is existent in all the organisms. But in my cell, all the cells will have the same genetic constitution. And in a species also, the genetic constitution or the sequence of the genes will match. And when reproduction occurs, okay, in the body, listen. Bacteria. Bacterial cell is there, bacterial DNA is there. The DNA multiplies and creates a, suppose this is the DNA of the bacteria, it multiplies and creates a new copy of itself. And then it divides from the middle to create two new cells. That means whatever exact genetic constitution it has, same comes in both the cells. So the proteins produced by them will be same as by these two. The characteristic possessed by by this cell will be same as this two, or this two will be same as this, because its DNA copy is there. Do you think if there is a note and I want to give you the note, I will tear the note and give you half of, or should I make a photocopy of it and give you half of? The same way the DNA makes a photocopy of itself, of the same length and same amount. This is known as DNA replication. Got my point?
Yes, sir.
This happens just before asexual reproduction or division of cells. This is a mode of reproduction known as asexual or bisexual, binary fission. Yes?
So the lifespan will be short.
Bacteria's lifespan is short. Lifespan depends also on the genetics or the genes of different organisms. However, in sexual reproduction, what happens? Like I had told you that in our body, in an body of an organism which does sexual reproduction, two types of cells are there: somatic cells and sex cells. The somatic cells are the cells of the body. The somatic cells are the cells of the body, like your lungs, eyes, heart, hair. Those are somatic cells. And sex cells are the gametes, which will be produced by your body and produced by the body of a female of every sexually reproducing organism on this earth, and they will fuse and form a zygote. And from there, this zygote will continuously divide in the body of a female, and a new organism will develop. Are you getting my point?
What about the DNA replication?
Occurs definitely if this continuous division is occurring of when your father's sperm had meet your mother's egg, that was one cell, no, the zygote. But today you are of one cell, no. So definitely if your cell division has occurred, DNA replication has occurred, because your all cell contain the DNA. Right or wrong? But here, combination of the two genetic materials have occurred, yes or no? Combination of what has occurred? Two genetic materials means, suppose the genes of me and the genes of Sunny Leone. And both our sex cells, my sex cell and Sunny Leone's sex cells, have combined to form a zygote. That zygote will contain DNA, or that cell will contain the DNA which is, or contain the genetic constitution which is half mine and half Sunny Leone's. How this occurs? Because in asexual reproduction it is pretty straight. Right or wrong? The same copy of the DNA is there. But here, all my cells will contain same copy of the DNA as my zygote contained. But my zygote will be a mixture. In my zygote, the genes will be the mixture. The genes will be the mixture of the two sex cells.
Yes, sir.
That's why little variation comes. That's why she is different from me. She has been developed from the sperm and ovum of her mother and father, and I from mine. And they are different individuals. This is the reason of variation. But the fact is this, how this occurs, how the mixture of gene occurs. With this, I will come to you in the next class. So today's class, if I do a little bit recapitulation, I hope you will understand that I had tried to talk about reproduction, type of reproductions, and what actually is reproduction and what happens, and how one more thing you understood, I hope, that in asexual reproduction the exact copy is created, yes or no, but in sexual reproduction little bit variation comes. Okay. And